back. If you're just joining us, Massachusetts versus Mario Batali getting underway earlier than expected because it's a bench trial, not a jury trial. That was elected by the defendant, Mario Batali. Let's go back in live. The defense with their opening statement.
The defense in this case is very simple. This didn't happen. There was no indecent assault. There are selfies taken by Ms. Tenney. She's holding the camera herself during the entire thing. That's going to be her testimony. And by the end of it, you'll realize that she's not telling the truth. So there's two types of evidence in this case. We have the photos and the videos that she took from the bar that night. Those obviously are what they are. And they don't show an indecent assault and battery. And we're going to go through them shortly, show you each one, and we'll go through it with her. The other kind of evidence you have is Ms. Tenney's self-serving, biased testimony that she was assaulted. The evidence is going to show that she's not credible and that the photos and videos actually contradict what she says happened. Now, let me just take a step back and introduce Mr. Batali. He's, as you know, because he's 61 years old. He's been married for nearly 30 years. He's got 2 adult children. Graduated from Rutgers. Worked his tail off in the restaurant industry basically from nothing to become a very successful celebrity chef. He owned multiple restaurants, and one of those restaurants he had an ownership interest in was called Italy, which is right next to the location where the supposed assault occurred. Can we show ID 61, please? So I don't know if you can see that, Your Honor, but
I can see it.
You've got better eyes than I do, but you can see Italy there, and then right to the right of it is the building. That's where the bar was. That's Town Stove and Spirits. That's not what it's called now, but so just to orient the court, that's the location, and that's going to become important when I go through some of this other evidence. But ADA Benelli noted what I would call the elephant in the room, which everyone sees, and it's the civil suit that's pending. She alleges severe and extreme emotional distress. She says that it was dehumanizing and humiliating what allegedly happened to her. Those are the words in the complaint that she filed, that her lawyers filed. She has a financial motive to prevail in this criminal case, and it's going to be borne out by the evidence that I'm going to show you. Obviously, the court is aware, but I'll remind you and myself, because we have a lot of evidence, but it's their burden here to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, which is obviously the highest burden in our system. It's not a preponderance, it's the highest. It's hard. We can't prove a negative. We can't prove it didn't happen, but it's not our burden. However, we will show you substantial evidence that she's concocted this whole story. But I just would ask, because it kind of flipped. We probably have more evidence than they do. It's almost as if we are, in a sense, carrying the burden of proof, but we're not. So I think given the passage of time since this happened more than 5 years ago, it's helpful. I passed up that timeline because you can see the events that occurred in the interim from the alleged date. So the first date, Your Honor, April 1st. Let's go back in time, 5 years ago. That's when these selfies are taken. Now, she, as I mentioned in the civil case, she gave a long deposition. She sat for a deposition. We questioned her, and you're going to hear her testimony, which is that while she was taking the pictures, holding the camera herself, Mr. Batali's hands were all over her. I'd like to play a portion of that deposition.
Now, we have who's this in the deposition?
This is the alleged victim's deposition.
All right. Now, what about the order with not filming the victim? Is the...
I don't know if that camera is going to show the...
I don't know either.
So that could be an issue.
Yeah. Well, so I would just state then in open court that the media is reminded of the court's order to not display the victim's face or identity during the trial.
Well, the only question I would have is if that camera's on.
That's the question that I have as well.
Yeah.
Can you keep it, can you keep it below and play the audio of the?
Yeah, I think the prohibition isn't done. I mean, obviously, a camera may inadvertently capture somebody. It's putting it out there on a live stream or in a newspaper or on a website.
Yeah. Okay.
In other words, I don't think you'd say absolutely prohibited from having a camera view that captures it as long as it's not disseminated.
All right. And you don't have an objection to that?
No.
All right. Well, that's the order of the court is that the victim's image should not be disseminated.
This is the testimony she gave when asked about the encounter with Mr. Batali. This would be page 80. I'll give you a binder. Yeah, I have a transcript that you can read along with. I'll give it to the prosecution as well, if that would be helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
So what page is that?
83, line 24.
Okay. So the question, page 83 of the manuscript. So you can tell me where, in which of those photos, for example, he was touching your breasts.
That is somewhere on my body in every single one. I would say in all of these photos, his hand, let's see, his free hand is somewhere on my body in every single one of these photos. I can't say exactly the one of the seeker. Well, I know that towards the end, it definitely when we grabbed my crotch. I'd say the first photos were more ass grabbing, and the middle photos were him grabbing my breasts, and the final photos are him reaching between my legs and my crotch. And not like my thighs, not like my stomach, like literally like the vulva area, reaching between my legs and grabbing my breasts.
So her testimony under oath is that towards the end of the photos, she says definitely the final photos is when he grabbed her crotch and pulled her. Now let's look at the last two live photos, if we can. So, Your Honor, you'll see. That's the second to last live photo. There's a sequence of 10 photos. The first 5 are still. Then she switches the camera. There's a 3-minute break. She switches the camera to live. She had the presence of mind to take her phone and switch it to live. This is 5 years ago. I don't know if you have an iPhone. I've learned some things about iPhones in this case, but so and I'll show you a summary exhibit. Still photos, 3-minute break, then we go to live. This is the second to last live photo. Can we show it again, live video? Her testimony is that towards the end, he's grabbing his crotch. That's the second to last. You can hear him say, does that work? His hand is visible. There's no grabbing the crotch. There's no nothing. Let's show the final video. Maybe one more time. So apparently he said, was that good? And there's one more. And then there's a photo, and she's posing, holding a pose, pursing her lips. photos and the videos don't support her testimony. And we'll show them all to you when she's on the stand. Now, turning to the timeline, we can show that. The court has it. It's the demonstrative. The next event on the timeline is on April 8th, approximately, is when she allegedly tells this Rachel Buckley about the encounter, the so-called first complaint witness. Now, we don't know exactly what she told Rachel Buckley. She's going to testify today about it, but we do have some insight into it because also with Rachel Buckley was her then boyfriend, Peter Batali. And Peter Batali subsequently in July, on July 20th, text Miss Tenney. We could go to ID 108, please. So I don't know if the court can see that very well, but that's text from the boyfriend of the first complaint witness, who is actually the friend of the alleged victim. And he asks her, do you still have those pictures? Do you still have those Mario Batali, or however you spell his name, photos? This is July 20th, 3 months after she supposedly was assaulted. She says, sends him 3 pictures of Mr. Batali. And then the last text, wasted beyond life, he said, hilarious, on July 20th, 2017. Talking about her encounter with Mr. Batali 3 months after she now claims she was assaulted. And then there's some statement about Lincoln Park and that. So this is the alleged victim's state of mind 3 months after the alleged assault. Again, her testimony's not going to add up. Now, the next event, May 25th on your timeline, Your Honor, you'll see it says NT spent $42 in Italy. So now it's May, so April, May, that's 2 months after the alleged incident. She went to Italy and spent money on his restaurant. And we have ID 17, which is a bank record that she produced in the civil case from her lawyers. Can you show that, please? And on May 25th, you can see she spent $42.45. Well, I don't know if we can highlight that, but the court can see it. Okay. Now, that might be curious. Do you think you'd go to the restaurant of the guy who you claim brutally assaulted you? Doesn't really make sense, but then I think I'd like to play another portion of her deposition transcript because she testified that as soon as this happened, she boycotted Italy. It made her sick to go near his restaurants.
We need to slip in a break here as we approach the top of the hour. Opening statements, Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Mario Batali. Will get you back into the courtroom right where we left off right after this.
Best prices ever.
Top of the hour. Welcome back to Court TV Live. If you're turning us on thinking, ooh, it's going to be Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, well, this week, they're dark. no court this week. Both sides with an opportunity to prepare for that anticipated cross-examination of Amber Heard, which will start a week from today, right here on Court TV. Now, we've got a lot to talk about in that case, but we also have this other fascinating trial getting underway this morning in Boston. The trial for celebrity chef Mario Batali underway. He faces one misdemeanor charge of indecent assault and battery. He's alleged to have grabbed a fan while they were taking selfies together. This morning, he decided to waive his right to a jury trial. We thought we'd be in jury selection all morning. Oh, no, he said, I don't want a jury. I want you, Your Honor, to decide. So it's a bench trial, meaning the judge will decide whether or not Mario Batali is guilty or not guilty. Right before the break, we were listening to the defense opening statement. Let's get you back into court right where we left off.
When she talked to Rachel Buckley, they boycotted his restaurants. So we can play that clip from the deposition about how it made her feel. And what page is that?
That is 111, line 17.
So page 111, line 17 of her deposition transcript. I can read it to move things along. She says, so of course, initially when I talked to her, meaning Rachel, about it, we were both like, wow, that's really disgusting. We're never going to go to Italy again, ever. It was kind of the general feeling, wow, how could that happen? That's so gross. Ooh, Mario Batali is disgusting. And then that was it. That's her testimony under oath in a deposition that she immediately boycotted his restaurant. We have the bank record to show that she went to the restaurant. And not only that, we have a text message. Can we show ID 105? I don't know if the court can read that, but she says, and this is a little bit after June 7th again, referring to the defendant's restaurant. I went to Italy and got food there, and then you can walk around with the drinks. She says that was kind of cool, but it was like so expensive. She's talking about the restaurant that he owned. Again, this is months after she was supposedly assaulted. The deposition, she said, and we don't have to play it, but she said she was disgusted to even walk by Italy. I'm at page 163 of her deposition. Line 8. Well, when you walk past Italy, you're disgusted and you don't want to go in. You want to avoid it at all costs. When you walk past Babbo, you're disgusted. You don't want to go in. When someone asks you to go to that restaurant, your stomach turns and you want nothing to do with it. It's disgusting. And she goes on from there. Again, testimony under oath in the deposition. Now, if you look at the timeline again, you'll see June 9th, September 15th, and on the next page, January 12th. She goes back to Town Stove and Spirits, which is the scene of the crime, where she says she was brutally assaulted. Again, I showed you the picture. That's literally right next to Italy. To walk into that bar, she had to walk right past Italy, which she testified under oath would have made her sick. I already covered the July 20th text from Peter Vaseline. October 19th, 2017, I won't show it to you now, but she comments favorably on a Facebook post about Italy and Europe with her friend, Philip Wolf. There's like this praising hands emoji, which is a good thing, I guess. I'm not that familiar with emojis, but commenting favorably about Mr. Batali opening a restaurant in Europe. That's October 2017. So that brings us to December 12th. And counsel for the Commonwealth alluded to it. An article comes out. And now, for the first time, Ms. Tenney claims she's a victim of an indecent assault. She texts or emails 2 reporters and says that Mario Batali assaulted her. And that's the beginning of these claims, that she was assaulted. And yes, you'll see text message. She talks about women, standing up for other women. But again, the court has to consider the credibility of that statement given her conduct between the date of the alleged assault and that day. And it doesn't stop there. On January 12th, now this is after she's claiming publicly that she was assaulted. And by the way, some of those text messages she's saying, I think the court's aware, I want to sell the photos. That's her first statements. I want to sell these photos, pay me $10K or I'll post them all. We'll show you examples of that. There's a text where she talks about, actually let's show 120 please. I don't know if the court can see that. She's texting with somebody named Kayla Toner, a friend of hers. Just as a quick aside, as a part of the civil lawsuit, there were interrogatories propounded to her. She was asked to identify all the people she talked to about the incident. She identified 5 people, and then her lawyers supplemented it later. Kayla Toner wasn't one of the people she identified. And there's text messages that we would suggest indicate why. So this is a text exchange with her friend Kayla Toner. And she says on December 12th, well, at least we'll get, is that the right one? Well, at least we'll get some excitement about suing Mario Batali, thankfully. The friend writes, this text. She says, I just emailed the woman who published a story for Boston Magazine, waiting to see if she replies. The friend says, no, not yet. The friend Kayla says, she could steal that and no compensation. You have the blue ball done. I guess a crude reference to, dangling this, story out to the media. Ms. Tenney says, I did say I have live photos as evidence. Her friend says, can you please read me this email? No. Yeah, I'm so shook. And then she sends a screenshot of her email to the reporter, which you'll see there. And then this is the key part, Your Honor. This is on December 12, 2017. And that's exactly what she's done. She played up the story, and that's why we're here. So let's go to January 12th. I'll just quickly try to wrap up because obviously, but the evidence, Your Honor, is going to show January 12th, she gets an email from that reporter that says, we're going to be able to follow up with your story. Now she learns that the reporters are actually going to proceed with the article about her encounter with Mr. Batali. And what does she do that night? She goes to Town Stove and Spirits, the very place where she claims she was assaulted. And we have a photograph of her there. We can look at ID 60, please. That's Town Stove and Spirits, January 12th, 2018, standing almost in the very same spot where she claimed she was assaulted months earlier. And you can see maybe you can't see it, but you can see the tile floor in town, and you'll see that in the photos taken with Mr. Batali. It seems like a peculiar way to spend the night when you learn that this reporter's going to write an article about the brutal, dehumanizing assault that caused you severe emotional distress, that you would go to the very place where it happened. Then, of course, Your Honor, the next event in the timeline, January 22nd, there's a text message to her first complaint witness, Miss Buckley, where she's telling her, trying to get her to talk to the reporters doing the story. And she says, you'll see text messages with her and her friend Kayla about she wants to get out of her gym membership. And there's a whole scheme, and I'll show you the text messages where she comes up with a fake lease to avoid a $200 payment, consistent with somebody who has a motive to lie for money. And Kayla is her friend, partner, discussing that, just like she discussed going to the reporter on the story about Mr. Batali. You'll see the text messages. That's on January 26th. Then we get to February 5th. And that's when she's called for jury duty. And we know from the jury questionnaire that she signed. Can we put up number 41, please? She gets on a jury for an assault, domestic assault. She has a jury questionnaire. She writes on the bottom, she's clairvoyant. And the text messages show it's a big gag and a joke with her and her friends. And she's going to say she's clairvoyant to get out of jury duty. And there's texting about it. And, so why go to the trouble to create a fake story about being clairvoyant to get out of jury duty if you were actually assaulted months earlier? That's the question. The text messages show it's a big, giant joke with her. It's funny to lie in a courtroom when you're a sworn juror, apparently. I don't know what she'll say, what the testimony will be, but she's going to admit that she violated the judge's instructions in that case. She talked about the case. She Googled the defendant. She judged his guilt before the case was done. And then, most importantly, Your Honor, she sat in a courtroom, the evidence will show, like this, in Middlesex County, when the judge asked her, did you follow my instructions? She nodded her head, said yes, didn't disclose the fact that she had violated all the instructions. Not once, she did that twice. She lied to a judge in a courtroom in a serious criminal trial, and she's going to be testifying here under oath as well. Now, on the timeline, we can go to June 1st, 2018. That's when she engages her civil attorneys. They reach out. It's a runaway train at this point because the civil attorneys see a celebrity defendant and money. They direct her, or rather their investigator contacts the Suffolk DA's office on June 11th. On June 22nd, she meets with the detectives. And Your Honor, there's a 45-minute recording that she gives where she was less than truthful with the detectives. She is asked directly, are you doing this case to bolster a civil case? She feigns ignorance about the civil complaint process. There's text messages where she's telling a reporter, giving her the scoop. They drafted the complaint last night. This is before she talks to BPD. They want to work with some detectives before they file. It's very clear she has a solid understanding of what's about to happen, but yet when asked by the detectives who rely on her to tell the truth, she prevaricates. That's going to be in evidence. And then we have the August 22nd. That's when the lawsuit's filed, Your Honor, again, alleging severe, extreme emotional distress. She claims a fear of being assaulted and or touched in an inappropriate manner in public. So I've covered a lot of ground. It's a lot of evidence. Again, it's not our burden, it's their burden. And I think, Your Honor, at the end of this, you're going to determine that she's not being truthful. This has been fabricated for money and for fun, and that Mr. Batali will be not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you.